Hi, my name's Caitlin, and if you're here, then welcome to my little corner of the world. I am officially joining booktube, so I figured what not be a better video than 24 books that I want to read in 2024. So this is going to contain 10 physical books that I want to get around to, and then 14 books that are going to be available on Kindle Unlimited that I want to eventually read. So let's not waste any more time and hop right into it. So this first book is actually my current read, and that is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I want to eventually finish the entire Throne of Glass series, hopefully before the year ends, hopefully within the first couple months. So I started Queen of Shadows not that long ago. So far, I'm intrigued to see the direction that this is going to take, and just the series in general. I finished Airfire back in October. It was not my favorite. However, I feel like this one's going to be a really strong contender alongside Crown of Midnight, which is one that I really loved. So I'm excited just to get to know the characters more and meet the new ones and just really wrap up this series so then I can move on to another series that I'm going to talk about in this video. So the next one is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren, and I actually thought it was really funny when I found out that this is actually two people, like it's Christina and Lauren. I don't know, I think that's fun. And so I've heard so many different things about this book, and a lot of them honestly have been really good, and I feel like this book in 2023 kind of gained a lot more traction again, and so I figured why not pick it up and see if I can enjoy it for myself. I know that it's a second chance romance, which I've actually come to love recently, so I'm excited to see how Christina Lauren does with this one and if I really love it, and then maybe I'll check out some of their other books. This next one has gotten a lot of hype because I believe it came out in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, and that is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I have heard nothing but love for this book, and I'm excited to see how this concept plays out because the way that it is explained is something that I've never read before, and that is this girl is given an apartment by her aunt who passed away, and when she comes home one day and she walks into the apartment, it's 7 years in the past, and there is just a man there. Now, personally, in any real life scenario, that would be probably actually really terrifying, but I feel like I would be the exception, and I'd be like, oh, free built-in boyfriend. You know what? Moving on. For this one, I was given a lot of recommendations, but specifically by a friend of mine who knows that I love the found family trope, and that's Six of Crows. I've heard this is the perfect series that embodies that kind of trope and just feeling at home when reading about these characters. So I'm really excited to dive into this series. I am skipping the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I know that that's not a requirement to read it, but I've heard that it's very YA, and that's just something I think I've kind of grown out of. So I'm hoping this one, I know that this one is YA as well, but I think the found family in this one is a lot stronger, so I'm excited to, if I love this duology, and then maybe if I do, I'll go back and read Shadow and Bone. I plan on starting this one probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, and that is Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh. I held off on reading Binding 13 for probably about 2 or 3 months just because there was so much traction about these characters in this series in specific, and I honestly, at first I was like, there's no way a book that big could be, so hyped up, so drawn up, and everyone loved it, and I found myself being wrong very fast. I finished Binding 13 probably in about 2 days, if not less, and the ending of that book had me literally sobbing and just being in disbelief of how it ended and just so abrupt. So I opened Keeping 13 and I read the first 2 pages, and it picks up exactly where Binding 13 left off. So I'm going to pick up this one really soon because personally, these characters, I feel like I know them. Chloe Walsh did an amazing job of making sure the characters had a lot of depth to them other than the 2 main characters. You really establish this almost friendship between the reader and these characters, and you want to see everyone in their own ways. So I'm excited to read Keeping 13 and continue with Johnny and Shannon's story, and then also is it Saving and Redeeming 6 with Joey and I don't know how to say her name. Is it, I don't know. I'm not even gonna butcher it. And then I found out recently that Gibbsy is getting his own book. I cannot wait. I absolutely love Gibbsy, so I'm excited to continue this series. I have had a lot of mutual book friends read this book recently, and it's been on my shelf for about a month and a half now, And this is another one kind of like Binding 13 where it got a lot of hype and a lot of traction all at once, and I was like, oh my god, this is a lot, there's no way. However, 2 of my recent book friends read it, and like I said, they have had so much love for this book, so I'm like, okay, I gotta try it out. And that's One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. All I needed to hear was that this had tarot cards in it. This is another one where I've never read a book with this kind of concept, so I'm excited to dive into this world because I know that it's a completed duology, so that makes me happy knowing that it's not going to be dragged out to like 1.5 million books where you have to wait like 4 years between each book. Like, this is a completed duology, so if I really like this one, I have 2 Twisted Crowns to dive right into. And so, like I said, it's about tarot cards and a girl. I'm not 100%. All I know is it's a man named Nightmare, or like, he's not a man. He's like in her head. I'm not gonna say that's kind of hot, but that's kind of hot. So, One Dark Window. This one is not gonna come as a surprise to quite literally anyone, and that's Powerless by Lauren Roberts. When she explained that this is like the Hunger Games and Red Queen, which I have not read Red Queen, but I have read the Hunger Games and loved it, like combined. I also saw Sarah Crowley saying that this was, I believe, a 5-star read for her, and I feel like with Sarah, when she has a 5-star read, she means it. So what Sarah says, Sarah goes. So we're going to be reading Powerless by Lauren Roberts. As I mentioned in my first book, being Queen of Shadows, and I wanted to complete it because I wanted to get to another series. The Crescent City series is the one that I want to get to. Now, I know that House of Flame and Shadow, it comes out January 30th, I believe, and the fact that that book is like 900 pages, honestly, is kind of scary. I was terrified to read A Court of Silver Flames, and that's like 750. Okay. But I really want to get to this series because I genuinely have had a lot of curiosity when it comes to this series. I can't quite pinpoint why. I've also seen a lot of fan art of Bryce, the female main character, and I've already fallen in love with her, and I don't even know anything about her yet. I've actively, and I think to the best of my abilities, avoided spoilers about this series. I cannot say the same about ACOTAR or Throne of Glass, but this one in specific, other than like one big spoiler at the end of the second book, but I'm gonna pretend that I didn't see it when I go to read it. So I'm excited to dive into this series because these are some big books. This is a big book. So one of my goals for 2024 was to read more romances, or like sapphic romances. So this next one is I know that's the second book. Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Like I said, this is a sapphic romance, and I'm just excited to get to this one. Honestly, the cover spoke to me. There's just something about it that I love, and it's just so cute. The synopsis of it sounds really good. It's a single parent trope book, I believe, which I believe she's the single parent in the bunch, so I'm excited to read about this one. And for the last of the physical books, I want to read Throne of the Fallen by Kerri Maniscalco. I know that you're supposed to read the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, and I ordered that from Book Outlet. I ordered the first 2 books in that series because they were literally $4, so I think I'm going to try to get around to those first, and then they recommend moving on into this book. I bought this book simply because I was on TikTok one day, and I saw when people do, like, I do them too, is where they do the pages of, like, smut. The things that this main male character was saying to the FMC, I probably would have, like, just disappeared into thin air, like, out of just sheer, like, oh, you know? So that's mainly why this is on the list, and I've also just heard really good things about this book in general. So, yeah. So now we're moving on to all the books that I want to read that are available on Kindle Unlimited, and we're pulling out the handy-dandy iPad to help me out with this because I need help remembering. So the first one is going to be Consider Me by Becca Mack. This is actually on my TBR for this month. It is a hockey romance. And I've mentioned before that, like, hockey romances are like my palate cleansers. So I felt really good about putting this series on my TBR because I've heard a lot of amazing things about this series in general. I believe it's a trilogy so far, but I think there's another book being added to the series. So, I mean, who doesn't want a continuing series? I know I do. So, and I've also heard the smut in this one is just a different level. So for the next one, it's also on my TBR for this month. and I've actually started it, and that's That Kind of Guy by Stephanie Archer. This is a kind of enemies-ish to lovers, fake dating, fake marriage, reverse grumpy sunshine vibes. This book so far, I love it, and I just know that I'm gonna love the rest of the series. I believe there's 3 other books in this series. It's the Queen's Cove series. But so far, the main male character, Emmett, I'll take one. I wouldn't complain. For my third one, it would be Caught Up by Liz Tomforde. Now, I know there's 2 books that come before this one. However, honestly, this might be a series that I read backwards. Because I hear a lot of iffy things about Mile High, and then The Right Move I've heard is a lot of people's favorites because of the main male character. I believe his name's Ryan Shea. I don't know, there's just something about a single dad romance that I personally, I can't resist. I really can't. So yeah, I think I'm gonna read this series backwards, starting with Caught Up. For the next book on this list, it is From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. I think this is a figure skater romance, and I loved reading Icebreaker where the female main character was an ice skater, so I feel like I'm gonna have the same love for this book, and I know this one goes on to a more like deeper level for a romance, so I'm excited to see if I like her books, engage, if I would read more, because she does have quite a few that are on Kindle Unlimited, so I'm starting with this one. Please leave me in the comments if you think I should start with another one of her books that are either better or just more suitable to like figure out if I would like her writing. I believe at the end of October I read the book, or beginning of November, I can't quite pinpoint when. I read Promise Me by Carlie Jean, and that was for me a 5-star read for the year. And I found out that she has a second book in the series coming out called Trust Me, and it is a age gap forbidden romance and inexperienced FMC. It's Jasmine and Elio, I believe. She has been posting so much, like so many teasers about this book, and I get giddy, as you can tell, literally reading and watching every single one. I'm so excited to meet these characters, like not even meet them because we've met them, but like meet them in their own way, like in their POVs and all that, because I can't even, I don't think I've ever felt excitement about a release more than this one. So yeah. For the next one, it is Unsteady by Peyton Corinne. This is one that I've heard so much about on TikTok, so I finally want to get around to it, and I feel like this is gonna be one of those books that I know that I'm gonna love. And so all I can really say is that I'm excited to get to this book. I'm hoping I get to it soon, hopefully around February time. I think a lot of these books, in terms of Kindle Unlimited, when I am on Kindle Unlimited, I am very much a mood reader, and I want something lighthearted and fun, or even just if it is a little deeper, like usually a romance on my Kindle Unlimited, like that I'm reading. So I know that this is a hockey romance. Once again, we're diving back into that one, so there's just something about them. This next one is The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. This is a fantasy romance, I'm pretty sure, and I think it's a trilogy. I honestly don't know virtually anything about this book, other than I've seen a lot of people like raving about it on TikTok, so I'm like, you know what? Might as well get around to it. Like I said, don't know much, so I'm kind of excited to go in blind because it is a fantasy book, and I feel like a lot of the times with fantasy books, it's better to go in blind and not knowing anything, because that's how it was for me with the ACOTAR series, and that ended up being one of my favorite series that I've ever read, so I'm excited to maybe start a new favorite fantasy romance. The next book that I want to read in 2024 is one that got compared to A Court of Silver Flames, and saying that basically like if you like that one, you'll love this book, and that's Blood and Steel by Helen, and I don't want to butcher her last name, so I'd rather just not say it, but I'll put the cover up on my next to me so you'll see it like on the picture, and then I'll put it in the description as well. Like I said, this had a lot of comparison to A Court of Silver Flames, and honestly, that's kind of all I know. This is another one I'm going into completely blind, but I'm really excited to get around to this one, and I really want to branch out in terms of fantasy books and reading ones that are more like, not lesser known, but like more uncommon titles that are usually on BookTok. I have never read a cowboy romance before. I think I've read maybe one, but I don't remember much about it, and it was because I read it a long time ago. So Flawless by Elsie Silver is going to be on this list, and basically the Chestnut Springs series in its entirety. I've heard her books are incredibly bingeable, and I'm going to be honest, the reviewer that I am going off of is my mom. My mom, I think this was like one of her favorite series that she read, which I would show you what that woman reads, and you'd probably be like, makes sense. My mom reads some interesting romance books, but I trust her opinion a lot of the time because she'll tell me straight up if she doesn't like a book. So, and with this series in particular, she absolutely loved it. So I'm excited to dive into this world and read a good old cowboy romance. So I want to finish this series before the end of the year. However, I don't know how long it will take me to read it, and that is the next one that I want to read is Addicted After All, but I want to read the Addicted Calloway Sisters series in its entirety, and maybe even eventually getting around to the kids' books. I think it's like the Like Us series, I think is what it's called. So I wasn't too thrilled after finishing Thrive. However, I really do love the characters in this book, and that's what keeps me coming back in terms of reading this series. And I know that this book is Lillian Lowe's like Happy Ever After, basically. Like, this is the wrap up of the Addicted half of the series, and then the rest is Calloway sister books. So because I loved Kiss the Sky and Hot House Flower, I can't even lie, like those were better in my opinion than the Addicted series. Those first 3 books were very hard to get through, I'm not going to lie. They were good books, but they definitely made me question what I was reading sometimes. So I want to finish up the Addicted series and then finish the rest of the Calloway Sisters books, so hopefully I get to that in this year. This book is simply because of the title, and that's The Cock Down the Block by Amaya Award. I have heard really good things about this book, but you can't lie and tell me that that title didn't catch you off guard a little bit. It did with me. I was like, oh, okay. As far as I know, it's a romance, and I believe he's either a professional football player, and I think they knew each other in either like high school or middle school or somewhere around that. And I just know that I've heard that it's just a cute, fluffy, good romance book to just read, and it's bingeable. And that's what I love about Kindle books sometimes, is when you can just sit there for like 4 or 5 hours and just finish the book. The Best Kind of Forever by Celeste Byers is the next book that I want to read, and this is a part of, I believe it's going to be a trilogy, or it's a duology right now, alongside Throne of the Fallen. Like I said, where I saw like book pages of the smut on TikTok, this one kind of goes along with that one, and the pictures that I have seen of the pages, I blush very easily. Let's just say I read one of the pages of smut in this book, looked in the mirror, and I was probably about as bright as a damn tomato. So if that tells you anything you need to know, yeah. This book in particular, I'm not 100% sure if it will be something that I end up really loving, because of the dark romances that I've read, I'm really trying to gauge if it is a genre for me. So I've read a couple different variations of dark romance, but the one that in particular that's going to be on this list is My Dark Romeo by Parker Huntington and L.J. Shen. I believe it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling. This is one of those where I saw it on TikTok, saw a few TikToks, was like, interests me a little bit. So I hope to get around to it. I'm not 100% sure if I like it, but I'm willing to give it a shot just to figure out if I am a dark romance girly. I really don't know. From like I said, the dark romances that I've read, they haven't had I don't know. I'll figure it out. We'll figure this out together eventually. For the last book that I want to read in 2024, it is going to be the second book in a series, and that is The Dixon Rule. I read The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy back in December. Loved it. Quite frankly, I loved it more than I loved the Off-Campus series. I didn't think that would be possible because I really did enjoy that series. And the second book coming out, like I said, The Dixon Rule, is about, I believe it's Luke's best friend, Shane, and then Gigi's friend, is it Diana? Yes. So Shane and Diana, I know that this is their book, and I'm excited. Both of those characters I loved in The Grimm Effect, so I'm just so excited to see them get together, because I feel like when I was reading The Grimm Effect, I wasn't expecting those two to be like the next book. So then when I went on Instagram after and saw that title, I was, let's just say, I was like, I was ready. I was excited. I was ready to go. So yeah, those are the 24 books that I want to read in 2024. I am so excited about every book that I talked about in their own ways. And hopefully you guys, you stick around and you'll maybe get to see me read some of these books and how I feel about them. So yeah, that's all I have for today. So bye.